While he was writing and while they were working on the opera, he wrote, just for the fun of it, he wrote a Star Trek novel called Do Comets Dream, which is really interesting. And it's one of the Star Trek novels. I don't read a lot of them because they're, I don't know, I don't think they're that well developed usually. But this one, the culture that he presents, the alien culture, from a Western standpoint, is very unusual because it's kind of built off of, I guess, maybe similar to Thai culture or Indian culture. So from a Western perspective, it's very alien, and you don't usually get cultures that are that alien to Western cultures.
What were some of the parts of that culture that's alien?
They had a very definite caste system. They believed in, reincarnation, and this, if I'm remembering correctly, this comet was coming and was going to impact on their planet and just destroy all life on their planet. And most of the people on the planet were like, okay with this because they felt it just was the time for their culture to end. So it kind of dealt into that Norse sense of Ragnarok, where everything's going to end, but then it's going to come back, it's going to renew later. So kind of dealt with that. And so you get into the whole reincarnation stuff with Eastern philosophies with that. And it was interesting because then the Enterprise crew was left with, well, non-interference, but there were some people who didn't want the comet to hit. So then, well, do we help them? Do we just take them off? Do we, there was a lot of moral dilemma there. So, which is one of the best things that Star Trek does. So,
we just mentioned Wagner's work. Do you listen to Wagner or other operas?
Not a lot. I have the Ring Cycle on disc.
Which version do you think is the best?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you. I don't even remember which version I have at this point. I love listening to it, but I'm not a connoisseur of opera by any means. But I would love to get some recordings of Somtow's operas. That would be great.
Cool. Is it available on CD?
Somtow stuff?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. In fact, yeah, there are. I checked on Amazon, and they're there. I don't know if it's the whole thing or just selections though. So yeah, that would be fun. I'd like to get a hold of those sometimes. So.
And you were saying that also that you listened to Rufus Wainwright.
Yes, yeah, I love Rufus. He's got a great voice. I like the fact that his songs are not just straight up, harmonies and melodies. I mean, he really breaks up the rhythms and stuff, and does some really interesting stuff.
You never forget his voice once you hear it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I've got to seen him twice up in Ann Arbor.
What was that like live?
Almost indescribable, because it was such a thrill to see him. Yeah, in fact, I kept wanting to. The second time I went up, I think I should take a rose and walk up on stage and hand it to him, see if I can actually meet him or something.
Yeah.
And I didn't, so maybe next time.
Yeah. Well, if you had to tell somebody who's not really committed to writing, who doesn't like to write, I mean, a lot of students don't like to write, or people in general, what would you say is a good way to, get started or improve their writing? Any advice you would give?
Let's see. Probably, well, this would be advice I would give to someone who isn't or who's maybe wanting to be a writer but struggling or something.
Okay.
And that would be to write, just to keep writing, and even if you don't feel it's any good, just keep going, just keep writing, write all the time. If you can, write every day. Because the more you write, the better it's going to get. It's like any kind of craft. The more you paint, the better your paintings are going to be. The more you act, the better actor you're going to be. Anything that's a skill or a talent is like that. And also you need to read. And the more you read, the more you exercise your mind. So I guess those things in particular. But for people who don't enjoy writing as much, I guess the basic thing there is just put your thoughts down on paper, and then rework it. Just mold it like clay. Just keep working at it. And nothing. I mean, just don't make it such a big deal. Just do it slow, do it slight. Just even if it's just like one sentence, and then see where that takes you. Just develop it from there. yeah, that's got to be a tough thing for someone who isn't a writer, and then they have to write a paper. So it's got to be a difficult challenge, I guess.
Will writing be an important component of your life, do you think, throughout
it
most
has
of your
been,
life?
and it will be. Initially that was what I wanted to do, was to be a writer, and I would still love to do that. I've written 3 books.
Cool. What are they about?
Well, 2 are handwritten, so they're even now kind of impossible for me to read. And the 3rd one is actually the one I'm still is still active in my mind. So
is it a novel, or is it?
That's actually would probably be a series of novels, and that's more of a fantasy-based. One of them was science fiction. Actually, I guess the other 2 were both science fiction. One of them dealt with more of superhero kind of aspects and stuff with science fiction, but not. It was more like aliens than just superheroes in that sense. But and then the other one was a colonization of an alien planet, and trying to create strange environments and how people would react to that and stuff. So that was that one, and then the current one that I've been fiddling around with this for 10, 20 years probably. And I've got several hundred pages, so it's good work. It keeps me occupied.
Any particular influence from who's your favorite science fiction writer? You mentioned Frank Herbert as writing.
Frank Herbert is one. I really admire his stuff. I really like his stuff. There's some other aspects that I'm not, but that was more of his personal beliefs, I guess. And I mean, in the same way, like H.G. Wells is another one that I love his stuff, but I've since found out that he had some anti-Semitic beliefs and stuff. So it's hard for me to endorse him completely at that point. But his writing was wonderful.
You mentioned King, of course.
Stephen King, yeah, he's more of a fantasy and horror. Tolkien is another one that I just, when I was, 14 or 15, when I started reading The Hobbit, I was just completely blown away. It was an amazing piece of literary work there. And then, that right after that, then I read Lord of the Rings. So, and then I tried reading the Silmarillion, and it was just.
It wasn't the same thing?
No, it wasn't. Well, from my understanding, Tolkien one, he hadn't finished it, and 2, I don't know, from one source that I read, he had not intended it to be published, and certainly not in that form. And his son, after Tolkien had died, his son, took it and, worked it a little bit and then published it. So I'm not sure it really should have seen the light of day quite as it was. I know some people really like it, but I didn't care for it. So, and because of that, I've never read any of the subsequent unpublished works or lost works or stuff that have come out. So.
And do these writers, are they, their influences or images or plots, are they floating in your head?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Are they, as you're writing your own stuff?
Yeah. Particularly, Stephen King. I think a lot of his style and the way he puts a sentence together. I think I've picked up a lot of that from him. But I've also found that when I'm writing, whoever I'm kind of reading more of at that time kind of enters into my work, in terms of the way I put a sentence together, a little more so than other people might. So even if I'm trying to, like if I said if I wanted to write a book in Frank Herbert's style, I would need to do nothing but read Frank Herbert for several months, or something, to be able to get it in that sense. Kind of like artists when they draw in a different artist style and stuff.
I think Anthony Burgess said the same thing when he was writing some book that whose influence he wanted. The influence he wanted was Nabokov, so he read a bunch of his books around the time he was writing. So it's almost like a process of osmosis.
Yeah. Because it's like you're reading it and you kind of get it in your head, the flow and the ebb and flow of the style, and then that can carry into what you're doing. Yeah, it seems like it would make sense.
Cool. Thank you very much,
Sure.
Rick Russell.
Yeah.
Wonderful.